I don't think people understand just how much Subic Bay's return will reshape Asia's balance of power. Welcome back to Important Updates, global news without the noise. Subscribe to stay updated. Subic Bay's salty air still lingers, but the echoes of U.S. Navy ships and bustling sailors faded long ago. For decades, this base was the heartbeat of Olongapo, fueling the local economy and symbolizing a powerful alliance. Then, the ships left, silence fell, and Subic Bay became a shadow of its former self. The barracks became offices, the piers welcomed cargo ships, and the Philippines reclaimed the land for its own ambitions. For a generation, Subic was a place of business and tourism, not military might. But history circles back. Today, February 3, 2026, a U.S. Navy destroyer appears on the horizon, not as a visitor, but as a returning force. The gears of geopolitics are turning once more. American forces are returning, not for a fleeting visit, but for a new, permanent presence. This quiet reawakening signals a dramatic shift in U.S. foreign policy and a renewal of a historic partnership. Why now? The answer lies in the turbulent South China Sea and the anxieties of two old allies. Subic Bay's story is no longer just about the past. It's about the future of America, the Philippines, and Asia's balance of power. The next chapter begins now. American military bases in the Philippines trace back to 1898, after the Spanish-American War. The U.S. quickly saw the archipelago's strategic value, a gateway to Asia and a checkpoint for global trade. Subic Bay and Clark Field became the twin pillars of U.S. power in the Pacific for nearly a century. These bases were more than military outposts. They were American towns transplanted onto Philippine soil, providing jobs and shaping local life. The relationship was complex: economic dependence, cultural exchange, and sometimes resentment. During World War II, the bases were targets and symbols of American resolve. After Philippine independence in 1946, the Cold War made these bases frontline outposts against communism. Subic and Clark were vital during the Korean and Vietnam Wars, anchoring America's Pacific strategy. The 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty cemented the alliance, promising mutual support in case of attack. Subic Bay became the largest overseas U.S. naval facility, while Clark was a major air hub. Together, they projected American power and shaped the region's politics. For decades, these bases defined the U.S.-Philippine relationship. By the late 1980s, the Cold War was ending, and Philippine nationalism was rising. Many Filipinos saw the bases as relics of colonialism and infringements on sovereignty. The 1991 treaty renewal became a national debate: security and jobs versus independence. Then, nature intervened. Mount Pinatubo erupted, devastating Clark Air Base. The U.S. Air Force abandoned Clark, and attention shifted to Subic Bay. But the political tide had turned. In September 1991, the Philippine Senate rejected a new treaty. The Americans were asked to leave. On November 24, 1992, the last U.S. warship sailed from Subic Bay, and the base was handed over. Nearly a century of American military presence ended. The Philippines reclaimed its land, closing a historic chapter. Subic Bay's era as a U.S. fortress was over, at least for a time. The region entered a new phase, uncertain and unguarded, but history, as always, was not finished. For years, the base closures seemed final, with the Philippines focusing on economic transformation. But the rise of China changed everything. China's rapid military expansion and aggressive claims in the South China Sea have alarmed its neighbors, especially the Philippines. Beijing's island building and militarization threaten Philippine sovereignty and economic security. Filipino fishermen face harassment, and the country's modest military is outmatched. Manila realized it needed a stronger partner: America. For the U.S., China's actions challenge the international order and freedom of navigation. Reopening Subic Bay sends a clear message: the U.S. is committed to the region. It provides a forward base to monitor China and reassures allies. The return is about deterrence, partnership, and defending the rules-based order. In military strategy, location is everything, and Subic Bay's is unmatched. The bay opens directly onto the South China Sea, the epicenter of regional tensions. American ships can reach disputed waters in hours, not days. Scarborough Shoal, seized by China in 2012, is just 140 miles away. U.S. forces nearby can monitor, deter, and, if needed, respond quickly. This proximity changes Beijing's calculations, acting as a powerful deterrent. Subic also sits astride vital shipping lanes. Trillions, in trade, pass through these waters. A base here lets the U.S. better protect global commerce and respond to piracy or disruption. In a Taiwan crisis, Subic and Clark would be crucial for U.S. operations, blocking Chinese moves and supporting allies. Subic Bay's geography makes it a linchpin in the new security landscape. The return of U.S. forces marks a powerful reconnection between two old allies. The 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty is the backbone of this partnership, now clarified to cover the South China Sea. After years of trying to court China, the Philippines has pivoted back to Washington. The U.S. is seen as the most reliable partner for defending Philippine sovereignty. This alliance is now about present-day security, not just history. Under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, the U.S. gains access to key Philippine sites, not sprawling bases, but flexible, integrated locations. American equipment and troops rotate through for joint training and rapid response. This model is less politically sensitive and deepens military cooperation. Joint exercises like Balikatan have grown in scale, preparing both forces for everything from disaster relief to maritime conflict. The U.S. is also investing in modernizing the Philippine military, sharing intelligence, and training. The goal: a stronger, more capable Philippine partner. This renewed alliance is about deterrence, resilience, and shared security. Together, they face the challenges of a new era. The U.S. return to the Philippines sends ripples across the Indo-Pacific. Allies like Japan, South Korea, and Australia see it as a renewed American commitment to regional security. Their economies depend on safe trade routes through the South China Sea. Subic Bay strengthens the U.S. position to protect these vital lanes and creates a more resilient network of allied forces. Southeast Asian nations, even if cautious, quietly welcome a counterbalance to China's dominance. A stronger U.S. presence gives them diplomatic breathing room. For China, this is a provocative move. Beijing sees it as containment and will likely respond with military and political pressure. Tensions will rise, and the security game becomes more intense. The stakes are higher than ever, with the region's future hanging in the balance. The US and its allies are betting on deterrence and stability. The outcome will shape Asia's security for decades. The game has changed, and everyone is watching. The South China Sea standoff is a global concern. European nations rely on these waters for trade and have sent their own ships to assert freedom of navigation. The U.S. presence anchors these international efforts. India, wary of China's naval ambitions, benefits from a stronger U.S. posture in the Pacific. It keeps China's focus eastward and aligns with India's own strategic interests. Middle Eastern countries depend on stable sea lanes for energy exports. Any conflict here could disrupt global markets. The U.S. role as security provider is quietly valued worldwide. The events in the Philippines test the future of the international order. Will rules and sovereignty prevail, or will might make right? America's return to Subic Bay is a bet on the rules-based system. The world is watching to see if that bet pays off. The U.S. return to Subic Bay marks the start of a new, uncertain era in the Pacific. The post-Cold War calm is over. Great power competition is back. The U.S. and its allies are drawing a line, refusing to let the Indo-Pacific be dominated by one power. For the Philippines, this brings both protection and risk. Modernized defenses, but also the danger of being on the front line. The alliance will require constant commitment and trust from both sides. The U.S. must prove its reliability, not just in crisis, but in daily partnership. The Philippines must defend its sovereignty, even under pressure. As U.S. ships settle into Subic Bay, the world waits. Will this deter aggression or escalate tensions? The answer is unwrittenness. Subic Bay, once a symbol of an ending, is now the symbol of a new beginning. The next chapter in the Pacific story is just starting.